Welcome to Business Morning on Channels Television, and we do business in just about 30 minutes, starting from the global space. Prices rose in early trade on Friday as players took stock of the United States Treasury Secretary's comment that the country's economy is likely in a stronger position than indicated by the weak first quarter data. And this is coupled with supply concerns as conflict continues in the Middle East. So take a look at the numbers. For this morning, we see that Brent crude gained 34 cents. That's about 0.38%, to settle at $89.35 a barrel. WTI also gained 0.39% at $83.90 a barrel. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen had said that the U.S. economic growth was even stronger than those numbers that were released for first quarter. And also U.S. GDP growth for the first quarter could be revised higher when more data comes out, and inflation will ease to more normal levels after a clutch of peculiar factors held the economy to its weakest slow showing in nearly 2 years. I wonder if this means that interest rate cut will come back or will be revised earlier than June. I wonder. We'll keep our fingers crossed to that. Well, data also showed that economic growth slowed in the first quarter, and prior to Yellen's comment, tremors from acceleration in inflation had weighed on oil prices as investors calculate that the Federal Reserve could not cut interest rate before September. Also, there's personal consumption expenditure data for March set to be released later on today. There's a 2% target of that. Also, supply concerns on geopolitical tensions, we're not done with that. Also, it continues to buoy prices, and Israel stepped up airstrikes on Rafah after saying that it would evacuate civilians from the southern Gazan city and launch an all-out assault despite allies' warnings. Still in the global space, but still in the oil space, but here in Nigeria, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, the NNPCL, has said that it has addressed concerns that surround the perceived current scarcity of premium motor spirits, which we call more petrol, in some parts of the country. We know we saw long queues resurfacing in some parts of Lagos and some other states. Well, in a statement that was signed by the Chief Corporate Communications Officer, Mr. Olufemi Shonaye, the state oil company explained that the tight supply of the commodity, which is currently being experienced in some areas across the country, is as a result of logistics challenges. I think they call it PPMC platform, through a platform where retailers, NNPC retailers, actually make payments. That has been down for some weeks now, and that has obviously stopped retailers from accessing products. And so if they don't access product, they cannot share, with consumers at the end part of the ladder. Well, the NNPCL spokesperson has reassured Nigerians of ample supply of petroleum products nationwide and asked citizens to refrain from engaging in panic buying. And now we head to the money market. Another depreciation is what we saw at the close of trade yesterday, Thursday. We saw a drop at NAFEM, not looking so good, but not the drop wasn't so much, right? 0.1%. We are still around 1,309 Naira 88 kobo from 1,308. So we see the movement at just 0.1% drop in the value of Naira and NAFEM, but it wasn't so for NAFEX. NAFEX was even much more. So while at the opening of trade yesterday on Thursday, we saw that it was close to the value at NAFEM. But at the close of trade, we did see on NAFEX there was a huge drop, more than almost 3%. To close at 1,346 Naira 35 kobo. But all in all, we see it's not a good picture for the Naira. Yesterday, we had a conversation on this. And our guest had told us, the Naira is just trying to find its level. So let's not be so perturbed about it, even though that might be difficult. But we're all watching the space. I also do know that yesterday, the CBN intervened and did sell some dollar to the banks. I think between 1,100 and 1,200, about that rate to the banks yesterday. So I guess at the close of trade today, we should see the impact of that. Hopefully we'll see a change in the trend of the Naira. in the country. Well, still around the CBN now, we see that the CBN has awarded the country's second payment terminal service aggregator, they call it the PTSA license, to the country's premier financial technology company, Unified Payments. According to the CBN, the selection, which was carried out after a rigorous and transparent process, is targeted at enforcing existing requirements that all transactions from point of sale channels in the country must go through a licensed PTSA. The financial market regulator says that the move, which aligns with its objectives to fully track all electronic transactions in the country, aims to clamp down on financial crimes and other market misconduct. Unified Payments, which is formerly known as Value Card Nigeria PLC, led the way to introduce POS payments in the country under its card scheme known as Value Card, which is the first payment card to be issued in the country. And now to the almighty issue of electricity supply in the country. It's been a couple of weeks now since we had the tariff hike, and then the Band A, Band B, Band C, Band D conversation has started. Let's find out how consumers are faring. And joining us for this conversation is Engineer Demola Agoro. He's the Vice President of Nigeria Society of Engineers. We'll be speaking to him more this morning as a meter asset provider, the Chief Executive Officer of Prodigy Global Services Limited. And he's also a meter asset provider in the country, talking about MAMS. Engineer Agoro, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great. So it's been a couple of weeks now. First of all, what band do you belong to, and how has supply been since the hike of electricity tariff?
Yeah, presently I belong to Band B because the kind of supply I'm receiving in my residential building is not up to 20 hours in a month.
What about your factory? I think factories are supposed to be the major focus for Band A.
Yeah, even my factory presently, because we run most of our activities on renewable, because we have basically the bulk of our activities are run from solar. It's only the injection part of our organization that we are running through the IBDC. But as I speak to you today, we are still struggling to have 20 hours of supply per day. So IBDC has not been able to deliver that.
So from your interaction with your friends and colleagues, especially other maps, you guys are the value chain, has Band A been able to meet up with a supply of at least 20 hours a day?
No, the challenge because of the sanction that has been put in place by the Nigerian Legislative Commission. So most disco are very scared now to move people to Band A because they know quite all right that if they cannot deliver the 20 hours supply, they are going to be sanctioned on it. So it's only areas that the discos can deliver 20 hours and above that have been migrated to Band A. So it's quite difficult to say that depending on the location of each of the factory, that will determine whether they are actually having this level of supply.
So as a consumer in Band B, about how many hours do you get? And what's your rate? Do you know your rate?
Yeah, the rate is about 60 Naira thereabout. But the truth about it is that you cannot verify the numbers of the hours. And that's basically because it is a fluctuating hour. It's not a stable power supply that you can get. Though most discos are struggling and putting their best to be able to increase on the supply. Like this involves, apart from the supply from the generation, there's a lot of investment in the distribution infrastructure, which many discos has to really put their heart together to be able to deliver on that.
So yesterday, the trade union, they brought up the conversation again, not that the conversation had stopped, about, the government shouldn't have hiked the rates, but you are in the value chain and you do know, of course, the difficulty that even the generating companies are facing accessing gas and the price of gas. Would you say, for instance, if factories companies are able to get at least 20 hours. When you compare that with the price of diesel, to bring up electricity, which one would you say is more economical?
Definitely is more economical to go on the grid. If the government and the generating company can do everything that makes sure that there is power, this power can be delivered to the industry. It will increase our GDP. It will cause the industry, because most of the industry today, they are leaving Nigeria because of power. Power is the bedrock of industrialization. And in many countries, all over the world, people do everything that is possible to make sure that they have enough generating capacity to be delivered to their industry. So when you look at it, is the price as it is being cost repetitive and service relative tariff is not over the board if the power can be available to the industry and for industrial use. So it's cheaper to still build on the grid than running generator or running diesel.
Okay, so another thing that the TUC has brought up is, I think this is just so obvious that everyone should have been metered before we have this hike so that it can be controlled and there can be accountability. Now, you are in MAPS. MAPS has been introduced for how many years now? Would you say that the coverage, metering Nigerians, has improved?
No, Nigeria still have quite a lot of the metering gap. But what people need to understand that when the distribution companies are sold, metering is part of the key areas that the distribution company are expected to have invested in. But because of the dynamics that have changed in terms of the forest and in terms of the issue of the MITO, that distribution companies are struggling seriously to be able to meter their customer, because the cost of meter is being determined too by the high cost of the forest. So many distribution companies cannot really invest. NEC came up with the issue of the map that allow customers to pay for this meter. So, but that distribution company will not pay back after some specific years. Even with that, the meter access provider needs to, because of the fluctuation in the forest, it is obviously changing the cost of meter every time, which is making it difficult for the reach of the customer. If you are talking about, is the meter available? Yes, the meter is available. But the truth is that people cannot, but at what price? Because of the cost of the forest, that is causing the price of meter to be increased, which NEC, in their own wisdom now, they are working on a liberalization or liberalizing the entire value chain of the metering so that people will be able to make this meter available at a very competitive price. And as you are aware, government is running what they call a PMI. There's a presidential metering initiative that the federal government is working on, that they are working on with the local meter manufacturer to be able to deliver enough meter into the over the next 5 years. They are planning to do about 2 million meter every year. I think if this initiative come into place, the issue of the metering, because it's obvious that the distribution company cannot invest in it. That's why the federal government needs to come into it and be able to see how the consumer can be properly metered so that people can pay only for the kind of energy that they are using.
So this unbundling that you talk about, how will it look like? Will it be individuals can now approach MAPS and get their meters, or how do you see it working?
Now, what I see working is that the federal government, they have set out some fund, according to the Minister of Power, and which is the chairman of that initiative, to be able to meter Nigerians. So it's going to be an initiative from the Ministry of Power and from the presidency to deliver this meter directly to the customer. They are the ones that are going to fund this metering gap, and they will now know how they are going to discuss with the discos and people in the value chain to be able to recover back their funding. But it doesn't have anything to do with, it's going to be delivered to the customer premises through the local meter manufacturers in Nigeria.
Well, I hope that works, because when we see things coming from the federal government to the consumers, a lot of times there's I mean, the value chain is so long, there's a lot of gap that we end up not seeing effective use of that system. So I hope there is a way to actually get through to the consumers and not that, it will stop somewhere in the middle.
No, actually, because regulator has actually made different opportunity available. As a map now, each consumer can buy their meter under the map scheme directly. Though the price is fixed, and most of the maps are very, because of the cost of bringing in the meter and the forest. Even though we have the meter, but the cost of replacement is high based on the fixed price that is on it at present. So that is why NEC is working on the liberalization of the entirely of the nutrient sector. The discos too have opportunity to do vendor financing. As a manufacturer, if a disco approaches us and any other manufacturer, they are able to provide meter for the disco under a vendor financing arrangement, as long as the process of repayment is agreed between the manufacturer and the disco. But what I want to clear out from people is that, just like any other manufacturing sector, there is availability of meter in Nigeria. You can see that the minister visited some of the manufacturing company in Nigeria recently. You can see that we have the capacity. It's not about, the problem is not about the capacity, it's about the forest. It's about the paying the right prices. Because if you ask us to deliver a meter based on the forest, the price of dollar, and other associated costs, the current price that is fixed by NEC, it will not be able to pay for those meters. But if there is appropriate pricing and everybody, there is appropriate the ability to deliver the metering, to close on the metering gap, I can assure you 100% without any, that we have enough manufacturers within the system in Nigeria that have capacity to be able to meet the entire metering gap of Nigeria as of today.
All right. So a couple of days ago, we did see that the federal government declared that power distribution companies will be unbundled along state lines due to their large sizes. Could you help us understand some of the implications of this? Because, I mean, discos were supposed to, I do know that at the beginning of the creation and privatization here of discos, we had learned that, at a point in time, consumers will now be at liberty to be able to choose which disco serves them. But we haven't gotten to that, and now we are breaking down the discos again. Isn't it taking us further away from the plan, the vision at the initial stage?
Well, this is the best thing that can happen to Nigeria at this point in time, and I want to commend the regulator, the minister, for taking that initiative to be able to make that sure that this happens. Because when you look at developed world, people have capacity, you have ability to be able to determine which providers that you want to have. The major challenge we have in Nigeria today is that most of the discos are too big. But when you do it along the straight line, it's so easy for like a state like Ekiti now, they can have their own, what I call a wired service. If within Ekiti, all the distribution network within Ekiti is controlled, Ekiti is under the Ekiti Regulatory Commission. But what will happen is that even if BDC or any disco want to deliver power, they will deliver power over that wired service. That wired service is available to any generator. And when you are doing it, you don't need to go into the grid, you can do a distributed generation, whether through solar or any other mix, and be able to inject into that wired service in Ekiti, for instance. With that, customers can choose to say, oh, if you have different provider and supplier of energy, all of them are using the same wired service. You don't need to, even if you are changing from one provider to the other, it's about aggregation. So it's not as if you need to change anything from your house. What I'm saying is that if you have 3 or 4 generator of energy under distributed generation in a particular state, all of them will be delivering their power to that wired network within the system. And we have been trying to encourage many of these states to be able to develop what we call a mesh network within their distribution network. Presently, Nigerian network is a radial network that if there's any fault anywhere, the whole system will. But if you have a mesh network, different people can supply network power at different sources, and that would make that network to be very stable. It's a very good thing that the government is doing to break power into state, but it will increase investment. It's one of the good time to live as an electrical engineer. We can see that there's a lot of opportunity in the sector. It has blown up a lot of opportunity that is going to help even in increasing our GDP. People just need to be able to be patient a bit with the government.
So will this now be controlled by the state, or will it be private individuals who would have to register and be regulated by the state? How will that work?
No, what happened is that what we are proposing is that when you have a wire, like if you are living in, let me just for sake of emphasis, because it is just one of the people that are just been given the permission by NEC. In Ekiti State today, if all the distribution network within Ekiti today, what we will suggested is that they will look at the cost of how many investment do we need to build a effective distribution network, to bring private individuals that can invest in that and build that structure. After that structure has been built, you will now invite private individuals that can generate power at the distribution at that level of 33 kV and 11 kV. So we can have up to 4 to 5 private companies that are generating power. The price has been fixed at 220 something. Then that will now bring about competition. If at the end of the day the network is okay, there is generation, the companies that if I have 5 companies generating power, I can tell people within that system I will sell my own power at 200 naira. I can say I will sell at 220. So you don't need to. So people can have opportunity to change within different local distribution company in their state. But as it is now, as long as you are running a radial network that is only one single source of supply, it will be very difficult for people to say, oh, you want to change your supplier. You will be stuck with a particular supplier. That is why this idea about state electricity, state generation is a very good thing. Though we need to just allow it to flow. This is what happened during the time of communication. But Nigerians should just be patient. It's an engine. There's nothing too difficult about this. This is going to work if you all are committed to making it work.
All right, thank you so much for that message of hope and encouragement. So Nigerians should be patient and see this new idea, of having state generation and distribution work. Engineer Ademola Agoro is the Vice President of Nigeria Society of Engineers, is also the Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer of Protege Global Services, one of the meter asset providers in the country. Thank you for your views this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's head to the markets now and see how that's doing. At the close of trade yesterday, we did see a moderate gain at the NGX, a 0.05% increase. But remember that we had dropped up to 98,169 right there. Getting further away from that, and also lost some money from 56 trillion to 55.5. Even though yesterday there was a gain of 27 billion, that hasn't been enough to cover up for the losses we've been recording in the last couple of weeks. So we look at the sectors now. Trust that the most liquid sector would be hugely affected. It hasn't recovered. There's still profit taking on it. More than 1% was dropped yesterday on the index. Consumer was also down, even though its margin was 0.05. Industrial goods, first time in a long time, unchanged. Insurance, however, got some attention right there, talking about the penny stocks, and oil and gas has its status, wants to be known as an unchanged sector at this time. So let's talk to, for the market analysis, we'll talk to our guest. Tajuddin Ibrahim is the Director of Research and Strategy with Chapel Hill Denham. Good morning, Mr. Ibrahim. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show today.
Yeah, so we look at the market and we see movement Not so good figures for the NGX, but the fixed income looking good, yields going up, and it seems this is going to be the trend for a while.
Well, I think that is one thing that we have to correct there. We have a situation where the stock market is sort of slowing down in terms of the returns on a weekly basis within the past sort of 3 weeks, and at the same time we have a situation where the yields on fixed income instruments are rising. So in finance and economics, what we currently are seeing is a situation where both markets are bearish. Bearish in the sense that the stock market is shedding some points, returning slightly negative numbers within the past sort of 2 weeks, and the fixed income is witnessing broadly higher yields, which also means a bearish sentiment, because when yields rise, bond prices fall. So we have that situation at the moment where both markets are largely speaking bearish. So on a mark-to-market basis, bond investors are also losing money. But when you are looking at new positions being taken by bond investors, then one can talk about such bond investors making money in the future because of the elevated yields we currently have in the market. And I think the broad development is part of market dynamics.
So now that the federal government has hinted that I think by June or so they'll be going to the Eurobond market, what's going to happen to the domestic markets?
So the domestic market will remain there, and because we have a situation where some investors are just going to stick to the domestic market. Let's take a look at the pension fund administrators, for instance, where we have well over 18 trillion naira in assets under management. One would say we will still see a situation where the sector is still exposed to the local market, because there is no significant provision for them to invest in to invest abroad and to also invest in dollar-denominated assets. So they still have to stay with the Naira assets in terms of investment. Also, we have insurance companies, that have liabilities that, they have to match with the corresponding assets. Those will also still have to stay with the domestic, the local market.
All right, Tajuddin Ibrahim, thank you so much for your views. Director, Research and Strategy with Chapel Hill Denham, thank you for your views this morning. All right, so it's a good one to know that even when the federal government goes to the Eurobond market, the domestic will still have some attention. But that's all we can take. Back to the Sunrise Daily Studios.